Well guys, Kate Bishop has been confirmed for December, and with her comes a flurry of new content, as well as a few teasers of what's to come next. So if you guys weren't aware already, Marvel's Avengers dropped its first deep dive into one of its characters, that being Kate Bishop, earlier today. And within this video, they displayed the storyline that we'll be getting, the challenges we'll be facing, and the cosmetics that we'll be receiving when Kate Bishop releases, as well as a little sneak peek of what's to come with Hawkeye. I'm cautiously optimistic, guys. I think what we see from the storyline that is forming between the Kate Bishop operation and the Hawkeye operation is something that could be quite special, quite interesting, quite different to most other kind of Avengers outings that we've seen in the past. I think it's something that will definitely continue in the vein of what the main story did so far. And I think the gameplay is kind of matching that. I think we are getting interesting, dynamic new gameplay with Kate that will be kind of easy to drop into if you know one of the other characters, or you're aware of something perhaps like Tomb Raider and how Lara Croft potentially works. Naturally, I'm not going to dive too much into the story here, guys. This is more of a news update rather than a story discussion. But of course, you can guarantee that a video on the story will be released during the week after December 8th. Until then, if you guys do want to see the story and how it might unfold, I'll link the trailer for this update in the description of the video. But I will give a brief kind of synopsis. There is a time bridge that we are trying to deal with to save Hawkeye from AIM, who have decided to infiltrate the future, and quite interestingly, Hank Pym seems to be quite involved in this. I mean, it makes sense considering the implications of quantum energy in regard to this, but it is nice to see an NPC who I was concerned might be sidelined getting some screen time, getting some main story time in this update. What they also said was that we would be gaining rewards throughout this operation that are unique to said operation, probably meaning that they are Kate exclusive cosmetics, which is really cool. I think that's a really good way of promoting a character's drop, promoting a way of doing their content. I mean, for some people, they will probably be uninterested in the story besides playing Kate. So if they've got a reason to go into that story and enjoy it, that's a great way of incentivizing that. What they also revealed with this was a new boss that we seem to be going up against in this update when it releases, that being the Super Adaptoid. And I know what you guys are thinking, oh no, another Adaptoid. I kind of echo that. It's not the most inspiring of changes, but luckily it is a little different in that it is essentially a copy of all the superhero powers. For example, the Super Adaptoid wields a shield like Cap, uses a hammer like Thor, and can use unibeams like Tony. So that will be interesting to play against. Being able to know our characters, and because we know our characters, you're able to get your kind of leg up on this boss. And thinking a little more on that, it will definitely be beneficial for those players who kind of have a grip on most characters, because then they'll kind of be aware and kind of ready for how Super Adaptoid is likely to react in most situations, which will be really interesting to see if that's how it actually translates into game. They didn't quite go into what else we might be facing during this operation or where we might be going exactly, but it does seem, by the story implications, to be a majority of AIM personnel once again, which understandably fits the storyline they're trying to portray here, but does potentially leave it open to being slightly lackluster. They did then kind of go into a big conversation about what Kate's kit is, and it was really interesting to see. Actually, there was a few surprises in there. For example, she obviously uses her bow at range, but in melee she actually uses a sword, and on top of that, we kind of already knew this, but she uses quantum technology to teleport or otherwise move herself across the map. First, they talked about her intrinsic, and that it allows her to teleport to enemies and deal increased sword damage. She also has a blink skill, which is essentially her traversal skills, which allow her to double jump, air dash, and kind of short range teleport. She has a quantum shift ability, which allows her to parry and then teleport behind the enemy to attack. And she has a number of arrows as well. So you're not simply firing one type of arrow, you actually have a few different configurations. Fire in quick succession, you can hold them and draw them, you can draw them back for bigger damage. You have scatter arrows, which can hit numerous targets or be used to kind of hone in a lot of damage on one target. Or you can use explosive arrows to stagger enemies, and even more interestingly, there's a smokescreen arrow which sends out stun damage, and that stun damage obviously will lead to potentially stuns on the enemies. So if you've got a lot of enemies in that smoke screen, you could have potentially CC'd a lot of enemies at once. Then they kind of talked about the heroics, specifically that Kate has a holographic decoy, and basically it distracts enemies, but you can blow it up as well to damage a lot of enemies who have engaged it, essentially. So that's very interesting. I think that's a very cool way of using this technology that Kate has, whilst also allowing a way to kind of get heat off of the character. And that's something that we kind of suffered with so far with other characters. There's a lot of ability to taunt, but there's not enough ability to mitigate taunt. And I think this is kind of slightly a way of doing that to mitigate the enemies that are coming at you when you're in a rough situation. They also kind of seem to really want to address mobility with Kate, because another of her abilities is Warp Arrow, and it does essentially what it says on the tin. It's a long distance teleport, and the arrow that is shot goes through all these enemies and throws them up. So when Kate reaches the other side, she is in a prime position to start attacking all of these enemies. It was also nice to hear that actually, if we wanted to, you can update that to be a supporty kind of ultimate as well, in which you can have other people follow you through what is essentially a wormhole that is created. Which is great for characters potentially like Cap. And her ultimate heroic essentially allows her to go ham, for want of a better term. She gets unlimited intrinsic energy during this period, and what that basically does is allows her to do a lot of damage very quickly with no cost. But it does seem like Kate is very big on CC, very big on mobility, very big on big damage. So she seems like she's going to be a really big addition to the roster and kind of diversified in a way we weren't necessarily expecting. Of course, they said that there will be emotes, takedowns, and nameplates coming as well. And this is kind of where they closed out on the Kate segment of the video. But to kind of give us a little bit more, to throw us a bone after, you know, this kind of drought that they've had us kind of experiencing recently, they gave us a little sneak peek at the Hawkeye operation, the second half or the second part of this first season, as they've dubbed it. We see an alternate future, this kind of wasteland, and then the shot pans. We see a Black Panther helmet, which is very interesting considering we've already been teased once about Black Panther, so he is probably coming very soon. And then we see none other than Maestro, the hyper-intelligent, evil, future, alternate version of Hulk. And it's very interesting to see that character being brought into play so, let's say, early. I know that's quite of a weird way to put it, but he's quite a big threat in the comics and in other media, so I'm wondering if he's going to be quite as big a threat here, or if this is like a fledgling Maestro. Is he going to be a continual issue for us? I'm not sure as yet, guys, and obviously I'm sure many people aren't either. But what it does show is that Crystal Dynamics is very much in touch with what people would like to see in the game, and they are trying to get there, and they are trying to do it in a timely fashion as much as they can, considering the situation at hand. Is it good enough? We'll have to wait and see. I think it's very much a step in the right direction, but a step that is very slow and almost unsure of itself. I hope that they kind of gain momentum soon and begin to start properly giving us content in the new year, especially because a Hawkeye will not be coming out until 2021, and then obviously probably Black Panther after that, which is obviously, again, as I say, disappointing, but, you know, to see them trying and to see them openly communicating about what they're trying to do here is better than what we had a few weeks ago. When they were discussing their state of the game, I felt like they'd kind of given a lot of empty promises, but this kind of seems to be pushing that through to kind of confirm that they are indeed doing what they said they would do. And so I am happy for that. But yeah, guys, that was kind of the summary of this deep dive into Kate Bishop. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.